All right, hello. Can everyone see me? Hi. Welcome everyone to App Studio. We're so excited to have you here. My name is McCall, and I'm going to be hosting this event on behalf of SF AppWorks. We are a innovation agency based in San Francisco. And in a moment, I'm going to bring on my colleagues and introduce you guys to everyone, and then we'll just jump right into the presentations. And then one more note, actually, is that I know the event's set until 2 p.m. today, but we are actually, the speeches are a lot shorter. I just left a little bit of a cushion time for questions. So if you have any questions, just throw them in the chat and we'll try to get to them at the end of each speech. And if you don't, we also are going to probably have a discussion panel at the end, so you'll have another chance to ask your questions. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring in everyone. Waiting on one more.
Hey, is this thing on?
I know. It's like anticlimactic because you're just by yourself. You're like, all right. So this is Andrew Greenstein. He's the head of product at SF AppWorks.
Hello. Nice to not meet everyone, but happy to be here.
And then we have Ovi. He's the head designer of UI.
Hey.
And then this is Mihai, who is our iOS developer.
Hey.
So we're going to be starting with Andrew because he's going to kick off the ideation. He's going to talk about design sprints, rapid prototyping, and so I'm going to clear the stage for Andrew.
All right. Thank you, McCall. And thanks, everyone, for taking time out of your day to be here today. We're going to talk about 3 stages of app development. I'm specifically going to focus on the prototyping ideation portion, in particular, how to use rapid validation techniques to reduce your risk when you're building something new. And then Ovi will talk about design and how you can quickly wireframe design your application, some tips and tricks from the trade. And Mihai is going to finish off with how to get that thing built and into the App Store. If you have questions, as McCall said, you can drop them into the sidebar, and we'll answer them either at the end of each talk or at the end. Okay, so when you have an app idea, you think you have an insight into how people can use these little computers that we carry around in our hands all day in some kind of new and novel way. But you're probably wrong. The thing is, you don't know you're wrong yet. So the question in product development is, how do you find out if you're wrong so that you can move towards being right? And there's a couple ways to do this. The first way is you can build the thing that you're thinking about. We did this back in 2008 when we decided to create an open source music creation platform, trying to do music creation the same way Wikipedia does encyclopedic knowledge. We were really passionate about music and thought we could rebuild the DAW in the cloud, which at the time was really new and novel. This was before Amazon Cloud and in general cloud processing. And there was a lot of interesting approaches to explore for new music opportunities. In that era, SoundCloud would eventually emerge as the leader in moving music around. And years later, a karaoke app that focused on the mobile experience and the simple tools to make music creation would turn into what is now TikTok. So our assumption that music creation could move into the cloud wasn't necessarily wrong, but the way that we went about it wasn't the right time for the opportunity. The problem is we spent a year building our first beta, and then another year trying to tweak and pivot features while frantically raising money, and then another year slowly, painfully dying as we tried and failed to find product market fit. So yeah, your first option is to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, build the thing, and just hope it's right. The second option is to build several things. We call this rapid prototyping. And it works great when you have a savvy product team and enough budget to invest in iterative development. We spent about 3 years building and testing prototypes for West Elm, including VR and AR experiences, chatbots, native web fusion apps. And our work was successful. We ended up building a mobile experience for their web that increased revenue by 8% per user. But the fun didn't stop there. We also got some really nice press, and the team earned some well-deserved respect from the industry. So while the model was successful, it did take time and money. Now, West Elm could afford this because they already had their core business and product market fit. This was a walled-off innovation effort. But if you need to bootstrap your way into your first win, it's too expensive and time-consuming of an approach. So your third option is to use design thinking, which is an iterative approach to understanding your users, challenging assumptions, and redefining problems in order to come up with these new, non-obvious solutions. So design thinking revolves around developing empathy and understanding for the people that we are designing services for. In design thinking, you hone your questioning abilities, you question the assumptions, you question the problem, and you question the implications. It's a great approach for tackling problems that are poorly defined or that have a lot of uncertainty by reframing the problem in human-centric ways and creating new ideas through brainstorming exercises and applying hands-on approach to designing and testing. Design thinking also incorporates ongoing experimentation through sketching, prototyping, and testing. I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, I'm actually going to try putting on my AirPods because I'm getting intel that there's a little bit of reverb going on. Give me 1 second here. All right. Does this sound better? I guess I'll find out. So the phases of design thinking. First, you empathize. You empathize with your users. And you do this through user interviews, expert interviews, by viewing other options, the other options that your users have, and by putting prototypes in front of your users. You define your users' needs, their problem, and your insights through journey mapping and how might we statements. You ideate by challenging assumptions and creating ideas for innovative solutions. There are several brainstorming exercises in the design thinking playbook to help manifest new ideas. You prototype to start creating solutions. There's an element in creativity and thinking about how you can test things with as little effort as possible. In other words, fake it until you make it. And then you test. You test solutions by putting them in front of your users again and again. You gather real feedback, you iterate, and you repeat. The design sprint is a giant shortcut to design thinking so that you can learn without building and launching. What's even crazier is in a design sprint, you seek to accomplish this in 1 week. So on Monday, you start at the end. You think about the problem you're trying to solve and you try to envision where do we want to be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? What is the main thing we're trying to do here? Then you think about your user and you create a user map, essentially a journey that shows how a user first interacts with your product all the way until they achieve the value proposition you're trying to create. Now, this user map gets edited and refined throughout the week, but you write your long-term goal at the top, create your user map, and then you ask the experts. You spend the afternoon of the first day interviewing experts from within the company, from outside of the company. Basically, this is your chance to get up to speed on the industry and understand the solutions that have already been attempted in the space, and to get yourself up to speed. And then you pick your target. You literally circle the part of the user map that represents the greatest opportunity or risk, and you circle the user that you're actually going for, and then you start trying to solve for that user in that situation. Tuesday is a fun day. You start off by doing competitive research. You look at competitors, of course, but you also look at solutions from outside of your industry. And your usual sprint team, I should mention, can be up to 7 people. So everyone is off doing their own research. You come back together and then you do lightning demos. So quick 3-minute demos of the highlights of all these different competitors. And you capture ideas from these on a whiteboard. And you use that to essentially create your first feature lists. And then in the afternoon, you do idea sketches. You basically are creating these 3-panel storyboards that can show an example of a feature as it works through. And there's a whole bunch of creative exercises to help get the juices flowing here. On Wednesday, everyone reviews the ideas and takes notes. You pick a winner, or you pick a few winners that you're going to rumble, essentially A/B test them with your users, and then you storyboard the heck out of it. Basically, create this long narrative. It could be 15 boxes long that show how this prototype is going to play out in front of users. On the back end, by the way, you're out there recruiting your users for your Friday tests, which a whole set of strategy around that. But basically, you want to get people that are your ideal users and get them to give you that feedback. And on Thursday, you prototype all night long, as it usually takes. I haven't yet been able to do a Thursday prototyping session without running past the allotted 6 hours, but maybe next time. And then on Friday, user interviews all day. Usually the facilitator of a design sprint will conduct the user interviews, and the rest of the design sprint team can watch, take notes. You can use color coding or plus minuses to indicate whether an idea is positive, negative, or neutral. And then at the end of all the user interviews, you put it on a big board, create a matrix for the part of the flow that you're testing. You start circling patterns, you pull out patterns, and then you chart your path forward and you write it down. And in 1 week, you've gone through this entire process of getting up to speed on the industry, understanding what your competitors are doing, putting together feature lists, sketching solutions out, storyboarding, prototyping, and testing. So I'm going to talk through a few quick examples here. The first one is Blue Bottle Coffee. If you live in San Francisco, you know Blue Bottle Coffee because it's one of the most popular coffee shops. If you don't, it's sort of like the quintessential San Francisco coffee experience. Baristas, super friendly, coffee, super high end, all that stuff. They used a design sprint to validate their product roadmap, and in particular, they wanted to know how they should do their online website to sell coffee. So they had an e-commerce experience, but only 10% of the revenue was coming from that. And so they did this design sprint to try and figure out how they could sell more coffee online. And they started with pre-sprint research where they created a coffee buyer's funnel. Basically, in this coffee buyer's funnel, they looked at how do coffee buyers actually approach the process of buying coffee. Well, they start by saying, what's here? Do these people know coffee? Are there any here that I would like? How will they taste? How will I make this coffee at home if I'm not buying it here? And then all the details and narrative that can go into that. So they pulled information from real customers. They included baristas in their expert interviews. And they identified some really sticky questions like how do we give people the right message at the right time? And how do we make our web experience as delightful as the experience of coming into one of our coffee shops? Then they did their solution sketches. These are the 3-panel storyboards that I mentioned where you explore ideas for new websites or for whatever it is that you're trying to prototype. The solution sketches should be self-encompassing, meaning they don't need an explanation. You should be able to look at them and understand what is the thing we're testing here. And so if you look at this one, shops, coffee techniques, tools, making great hand-poured coffee, step 1, next. And then they can scroll through this process for how you make great hand-poured coffee. That's one of the concepts they wanted to test. Then they storyboarded the entire user journey, starting with an article about 3 new coffee shops that the user would see in the New York Times or whatever. And it would finish with someone buying a coffee subscription. After that, they took this storyboard and they used Keynote to make a bunch of clickable prototypes they wanted to put in front of users. And here's what their ideas look like. So this is Telescope Coffee, a made-up coffee shop. And Telescope Coffee focused on the story of Turkish coffee. And they had some features around how you could explore coffee. The second one was called Potting Shed. And in Potting Shed, they built their experience around the technique and the flavor profile. They also brought their blend types and prices to the forefront of the homepage. And then the last one was Linden Alley. And in Linden Alley, they tried to recreate the wood and chalk aesthetic of the brick and mortar Blue Bottle locations. And for the record, this was the plan that they wanted to go with before they ran the design sprint. So they thought, hey, this is going to be great. We're going to create this like wooden home feel. It's just going to be like being in our store. Thankfully, they did not, because when they did the user interviews, they were horrified. And thankful, I guess, to find out that people thought that digital wood felt really cheap and that this was a coffee shop that didn't really know what they were doing. It felt gimmicky to them. Of course, the idea is you want to find that out before you actually spend all that time and money building the thing. So the biggest insight they found was that people wanted to use the brewing technique as a starting point for coffee selection when buying online, because of course they're going to get this coffee shipped to them, and they needed to first and foremost know that they could make the coffee at home. When they then built their website around this, while still incorporating elements from some of the other prototypes, lo and behold, they were able to double their e-commerce revenue. A second example is from a new media company called Gimlet. Now, Gimlet's secret sauce as a media company was they were going to really be built around mobile. Everything about it was mobile friendly, mobile optimized, mobile only even. And so as a mobile focused company, they had to answer their question of, do we need an app? So they started by evaluating 32 things they could build. They drew ideas from their expert interviews, from employees, from listeners, from mentors. And then they drew their user map to identify potential listeners first, and then highlighting the device as a differentiator. Of course, they're going for mobile, and then exploring different ways that people might discover their product. And all that's useful, but the portion of the user journey that they decided to focus on was the first-time app experience, and whether it would lead to more premium and or more sharing. So to test their app concept, they created a fake app. And one of the things they tested in this fake app is they actually had their podcaster record an audio walkthrough of the app. So you could load the app, and it would sort of say, "Hey, welcome to this app. Here's how the app interface works. Here's what we're about." But they included a shut up button in case people didn't want to hear it. People did not want to hear it. They learned. Everyone was hitting the shut up button, and they decided not to do that. They also created a bunch of fake shows, some of which were behind a paywall. And none of it was real, but they got real feedback on these ideas. And they found out that the app itself wasn't actually what their users wanted, but gated premium content was. And so they actually shifted their focus to build out a whole content program and save a bunch of money on app development. That's a US audience joke, if you guys see those Geico commercials. If not, I suggest you YouTube them because they're hilarious. The third example I want to talk about is Pocket. So Pocket's an app that lets users save articles to the web for later reading. They were getting a lot of new users from lead gen activities, but those users were not sticking around. So they did a design sprint focused on encouraging the stick-around behaviors that they wanted to see, like saving articles. Now, if you look at their user map, you can see the steps of the onboarding process. And the part that they really decided to focus on, what they call the getting started completed, tasks like saving items. And that was the area that represented the greatest opportunity for them. So they actually ran 3 design sprints, each time prototyping and testing different concepts. So these are 2 examples of their concepts. One's the 1-2 punch. The other one is this what's in it for me concept. So they took the insights that they learned during the user interviews and they implemented them. And that led to a 58% increase in the amount of new users who saved items to Pocket. And again, I cannot stress this enough. These insights came without actually having to code or build anything. And if you're starting an app, that's the name of the game. How can you actually figure stuff out? How can you build a case for your hypothesis while spending as little as you can on development? And then, of course, once you've made that case, then you have something to go to investors and try to raise money so that you can actually build out the now tested hypothesis. So design sprints are great whether you're just starting a new concept or improving upon an existing concept. You can also use them to test business models, determine if you need an app, test onboarding flows, rumble multiple concepts, identify and prioritize new feature ideas, solve a big problem, or when you don't know where to start. And when you finish your design sprint, you'll have a wealth of data and insights that you can use to raise money, get your team to buy into your product plan, or for when you hand the mic over to your designer, which I'm about to do. But first, does anyone have any questions?
Hi, sorry. It's delayed for a second. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Okay, I think we are good.
I have a question. What is a NAF mic? Does anyone know what a NAF mic is? Nicholas, perhaps? Is this a NAF mic?
We'll go.
All right. Well, if you have questions, there'll be a chance at the end. Otherwise, you can also reach out to me, Andrew at sfappworks.com, or on Twitter. I welcome your inquiries and happy to hear about what you're working on.
This was so insightful. Thank you so much, Andrew. Oh,
No problem.
An English UK, a poor mic.
Oh, yeah. We are all about agile and getting things on the ground. This includes doing live speaking events. Sure, it would be awesome to have a whole podcasting booth and nice mic setup, but we really just wanted to get the content into people's ears so that they could take that and work on their own thing. We have a saying that we invented here called "just do it," meaning like don't get held up with technicalities. So, Nicholas, no disrespect meant to the audience. Appreciate the feedback. Certainly, we'll look into that for next time. But I did hope you enjoyed the content of this.
I certainly did. Okay, we're going to bring on Ovi, and thank you so much again, Andrew.
Yep.
So now we're moving into design. This is Ovi, as I introduced him before.
Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm guessing you can see my screen. I can see it. So let's begin. Hopefully you can hear me well. If not, I'll do my best to get myself heard. So today I'm going to show you how to design an app. There's multiple ways to do it, and I couldn't figure out the way. So then I thought I would show you how I design an app. And then I couldn't find an idea. So I'm going to show you how I designed this app because it was already done. And I can show it as an example, and you can also download it at the end. So this app is called Push App. It's an office workout app that we've built. And it's supposed to track your progress doing push-ups throughout the day. It's mainly used to get you out of the chair while working. So this is what the app looks like. This is the MVP. What the app does is it tracks your progress. You can edit your workout, you can do a rep, and you have a history of your workout. The way we thought of doing it is having you do a low number of push-ups every hour, so that way you get some exercise because you would do low number of push-ups but a high intensity by doing time under tension. So you would spend about 4 seconds in a push-up or 10 seconds if you want to go crazy. That way you get some workout every hour and you don't sweat at the office. And a way to monetize it was to include a subscription where people don't have to pay if they do all their push-ups. So over here in the history, you can see how many push-ups they did each day. And if they didn't, they pay $1. Okay, so how did we get here? Well, we started with an app idea. The idea was, let's make an office workout app. We had no idea what would work, what wouldn't work, and we did some research. So something that can be done in the office with no equipment. Push-ups was the easiest and most obvious choice. We needed something that didn't make you sweat or make loud noises in the office. So we did some research and found out that strength training is really good because it requires low reps and high intensity. So I mean, heavy weights. So by spending a lot of time under tension when doing the push-ups, like 10 seconds, you would get some workout done. And also in strength training, you're treating You're treating it more like a practice than a workout. And then we needed to make it special, so we won't charge unless you skip a day. So let's see what the core features of this might be. Core features for the app to actually be useful would be a home screen where I can show my progress, show the upcoming set, previous sets, show the time, start and recover a set. We also need to edit those options from an edit screen, and we also need a workout screen where I can actually do the set and have some pace keeping and also be able to pause, cancel, resume. So those would be the core features. With this, you have a functioning app that a developer can build and you can use it. But it wouldn't be fun for the user, and also the App Store might not approve it. So then comes some baggage in the form of a splash screen, a tutorial of how the app works. Like I just explained, our concept behind it, we also have to explain it to the user. We also need some how-tos of how to do a push-up if somebody doesn't know or doesn't do it properly. We need some history because it's nice to keep track and you might want to brag about it. And we also need some about and terms on which we're kind of hiding in the history for now because this is an MVP and there's no room for other screens. And then would be the ideal product, which would have user profiles, which also includes a sign up and login flow, some leaderboards for online. You also need to edit that profile. You need a feedback section if you actually want to know the user's opinions. Then we can hide the about and terms in the profile screen. And we also need a subscription pop-up or to manage a subscription, but depending on what state they're in. And we also thought it's a good idea to allow them to buy a t-shirt from us if like they do their job and we're not getting paid. So this would be the same app that you see here, but this is more detailed and it's something that the team would actually see. But it's too big to show it on screen. Okay, so first we wireframe the MVP. You can use whatever you want, starting from Sketch, Adobe, Figma, all other stuff. What I prefer to use is a pen and paper or a whiteboard. And yeah, you don't have to be an artist. You just have to know what it means and at least know how to explain it to the team. So even if it looks like this, it's perfectly fine. This is actually it, and it worked out perfectly. We have here the splash screen. We have the tutorial. We have the home screen, where we made a decision to include a clock, just because otherwise it would be just a list or maybe an empty screen when you first start out during the day. We want an option to edit those settings. So we want to select the hour when you start that set and select the hour when you end that set. And choose your difficulty and maybe enable notifications, stuff like that. So from this drawing, you can already tell there's another circle here. I was thinking we could maybe use that time picker that you have in the bedtime section of the clock app on iOS. It's a good design, and iOS is always the best example. So we're going to go with something similar. Then here you have the history, just says the day and the date, maybe the number of how many you did, and the workout screen, where you start, stop, pause, and the tutorial. Okay, so then you do some design research. And what are you looking for? You're looking for trends, for competitors. We kind of make the decision we want spacious design and we want it to look professional for the office. Spacious because there's not too much information on the screen, but if you fill it up in a nice way, it looks good. So with that in mind, I was looking for some white fonts, and for the colors, I chose to go with the dark theme. So I picked dark gray as the main color and yellow as an accent color. And red is just used for alerts. With all those ideas in mind, neumorphic design seemed the best choice. So we went with that. No real competitors, at least not doing something similar. They were mostly just workout trackers. Okay, and round elements, because neumorphic design kind of forces you to use them. So before we design the core features, actually we designed the core features. Okay, we need to add in the home screen the progress, the time, the upcoming set, and the option to start the set. So those are core features of the home screen. For the edit, basically editing those settings of the workout, how many sets, the active days, reps per set, difficulty, and enabling notifications maybe. And the actual workout screen where you have your audio and visual pace keeping, review and edit the set, start, pause, end. Okay, so we went with neumorphism, which is basically it's flat design that has some 3D effects. Those 3D effects are achieved by having highlights and shadows. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the neumorphic. Let's see how to build one. So firstly, because it's a dark theme, we're gonna make a dark screen. You're not allowed to use pure black or pure white for neumorphic because you have to have shadows and highlights. So never go full black or white. So make a dark screen with our key color. Draw a dark rectangle on it. Add a drop shadow, as you can see it here, and offset it in a way that it's even, so 10 by 10 pixels, or whatever number you're comfortable with or you think looks good. Then add another drop shadow. Offset this to the opposite side, so -10, -10. And what drop shadows are basically the same shape underneath your original shape with different colors. And you can offset them by the X and Y axis. If you round the corners, you already get a 3D effect. You can see the highlight over here from where the light is hitting and the shadow cast over here. If you blur them, looks a bit better. Now, if you reduce the spread, which basically shrinks the circles of the shadows, you get a much better effect. And then if you reduce the opacity or mess around with the opacity on both colors, you get something like this. So this would be your basic button in the app. All prototyping and design apps now have appearance styles. They might have different names in different sections, but in different apps, but Sketch calls them appearance. You just create an appearance for one, give it a suggestive name, hit enter, and it's created. Now to make a button pressed in a neumorphic style, you remove those shadows, re-add them as inner shadows with the same settings, and you can already see it looks pressed. To make it look a bit better, you need to reduce the blur of the white shadow, which is now at the bottom. So if the light hits from here, it casts a shadow inside the button, and it should have a highlight over here. So to make that highlight look realistic, you change the offset here, so it looks just like that line is being hit by the light. And that's pretty much it. So now I have a pressed button. You can save this as well by clicking create again and giving it a proper name. And that's it. You have two appearances created for neumorphic buttons, which you can reuse everywhere in the app. So with that said, you can apply these appearances on any shape afterwards without messing around again. And if you ever want to make a change globally, you just make the change and click update over here. So now let's add some text. You add some text. You style it to a size that honestly you just feel looks good. Obviously, take a look at other apps or design styles from Apple, but realistically, if you can mirror it on your phone and it feels good to you, you're pretty much good to go. So for this, I made a choice. I said all buttons are going to have bold fonts and color yellow, size 16. It could be something different, depends on your app and what you want to build. Just create a new style for it. Now you have that and you can reuse it everywhere. And then to create a symbol, you select everything and just click convert to reusable symbol. Figma has this, it calls it components. I think symbols are called everywhere else, including Adobe. So once it's created, you give it a suggestive name, and you can reuse it everywhere. Here I have two symbols created, one pressed, one regular, and I can just select them from a drop-down, place them wherever I want, and resize them however I want. They also have overrides, so for any element inside the button that you have an appearance already created, you can go in and mess around with switch appearances on them. So for example, in this rectangle, even though it's the regular button, I can select from a drop-down the pressed button, and instantly I have a pressed button ready. And I can just save this as a new symbol and reuse it everywhere. Or just use it like this and always change it from the drop-down. You can also override the text content. So now what we've done is we created a Lego piece and we're messing around with it. So from here on, you can pretty much resize it any way you want, and you have all the buttons you might ever need in your app. To make something like a cell, for example, you would just, realistically, you would say, okay, how would a cell look in Neumorphic? Well, probably it's going to look like it's pressed because I don't want it to be standing out. And also, it's probably not going to be yellow because yellow is our key color, which we're going to use for buttons. So we kind of set these rules as we go, and we're trying to stick to them as much as we can until we have no choice but to create something new. So with that in mind, this would be the home screen where we have our button. We just created a new symbol where we have also added the numbering of the next set. We have the cells, which are just pressed buttons with left-aligned text. I've chosen a regular text that's white for a cell. So now I've made a new rule that says all cells are pushed in and have white text. This is a specific kind of cell because it also has a numbering here, and it also has some red text saying missing set whenever that's the case. But it's essentially the same thing. So we have a cell, we have a type of button, and we also created a new type of button over here, which is same idea. We're just using icons inside of it. So this is a new rule that we've created. We have icons inside of buttons, which we're going to use mostly for navigation, right? So everything that takes you from a screen to another has icons. Everything that makes an action has text and is as wide as the screen, with padding, of course. And for the clock, it's a bit involved, but it's mostly just figuring out the angles of these lines. So we're not going to mess around with this now, but you can see the fast forward version of how the clock is built on the Instagram for SFAppWorks. And please check it out there. But as you can see, we're reusing the fonts. Same font that's used in a cell is also used here and here for the sets left. We added the new font, which is bigger over here to give us the number. And the same font as the cell is used for the hours. This big number, what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and use it again somewhere else, so it doesn't feel out of place. So as we're building this design style, we're trying to incorporate whatever we build new into other screens, so nothing looks out of place. With that idea in mind, the edit screen, we tried to use this clock section somehow to reuse it again, so the clock doesn't stand out so much. So we chose to pick your number of sets by having this radial slider, where you select starting from 9 to 6, your number of sets. And then we hit a snag over here. We wanted to have the days of week active, but there's no way to fit this button size, which is 50 by 50, I believe, and have them all on the same line. So then we made a new rule, which is smaller buttons. So just having one row of small buttons here and then the others would be like this big one, or would look out of place. So to counteract that, we've made all of them like this. So we kind of created a new rule. Okay, if these are navigation and this is a big action button, then these would be setting buttons that don't really take you anywhere. They just enable or disable something or make changes. And we're going to try to reuse this in other sections. And we have in the workout screen where you could also tweak these settings right before starting a set in case, I don't know, it's the last set and you feel like you won't be able to do a 4-second one and you switch to a lower 2-second one. So with this, you're pretty much done with the core features. So to recap, we wanted progress and time. Just make a clock. The notches show you where you start, where you end. We have the upcoming sets and starting a set. For the edit screen, we have the number of sets that we can pick. We can pick the number of reps. We can pick the difficulty and some other stuff like days of the week and notifications, which you'll see a bit later. For the workout screen, we have pace keeping. We have review and edit set. We have the start button to actually start the workout. While it's going, you have pace keeping active. So it goes down for 5 seconds and up for 5 seconds. That way the user knows if he's doing a push-up with a screen in his face. And we also added audio cues in case some people don't watch their phones while they do it. You can pause. And while it's paused, you can resume or end the set. And we also have a set complete screen and the done button. So those are the core features. With those, you can pretty much build the rest of the app. We have enough elements that we've created this design style that we can now use. So now all the other screens are mostly remixes of those buttons we already have. So if you get the core features done, pretty much everything else falls into place. For example, the core features, I think, took, I don't know, maybe a month to figure out, maybe not that much. There's a lot of tweaking in design, a lot of tweaking on different elements, but once those are set in stone, everything else you can just build with no problem. So if this takes a month, everything else takes, I don't know, a week and a half, depending on your work. So let's go quickly through all the screens and we can actually count over here how many new elements we have compared to the core features. So right off the bat, we have 2 new fonts that are not used anywhere in the app. Okay, these are just, this size is just what I felt looks best on a splash screen. I could have used something bigger, but it looked too crowded. So yeah, that's on me. Next up, sign up and log in. Here we have a new type of cell with validation, which includes this small text over here, which we didn't have anywhere else. So we've added it to the design style, and we're going to try and reuse it again. We've added a new type of button, which is disabled. This would be a new type of button because we've established our icons are always going to be in round buttons. But honestly, it just didn't look right, and sometimes you have to break your own rules just to have it look good. So that's 5 so far. 6 with a forgot my password link. A button would have been like too bold in there. So just an underlined text should do. So that's 6 so far. For the tutorial, here you can see basically the splash screen again. So we're just reusing that. Added some text, which is the same text used in all our cells. Same here, including the numbering, which is exactly what's in the cell, just without the background. And we're not counting these because they're just dots. On the home screen, we've added 2 new types of cells. I mean, I guess it's correct to say an open cell. So we have a more button here, which you can tap on and you can recover a set if it's missing or delete a set. Recovering is useful, deleting is mostly for QA, so they can test it. We've also added tabs because in the ideal product, we have a profile, and then we have the leaderboards and the history. So we already have enough screens that we can use a tab bar. Next up is the edit screen. Here you can see the scroll version, where you have the difficulty, notifications, and sync with Apple Health. No, nothing new there. Workout screen. You've seen this before. Nothing new here. Then on the how-to screen, same idea. Same text as the cells, same numbering, same spacing, same everything. So nothing new. In the history screen, okay, we have new types of cells if you really want to count them in, but it's nothing too hard to build. You just give them the numbering here, and then something to stand out. We color if it's a free day or if you lose $1. I'm not gonna count graphics and icons because that's kind of a separate thing. Okay, next up, we got our leaderboards. So for the leaderboards, we have these new types of cells, which same as the history, just less text over here, nothing really to build. But we did add photos here, so we're counting it. And in this example, you can actually scroll, and your cell, your position will always stay sticky to the top or the bottom, depending on where you scroll. Another new element was the table header, because we just needed a small font and we didn't have anywhere else. So this is another one where we had to make a decision to include something new. And we also had this tab bar, which is like this because we really needed to differentiate the top tab bar, which you can swipe, from the bottom one. Then we have the profile screen. Nothing new here. We have the edit profile, just simple cells, nothing new. Feedback, just link to the email app and don't worry about it. About and terms, this is something new. We added a different font just because it's easier to read. So that's the only real reason. Subscription pop-up and manage subscription. These two, this one you would receive if you didn't subscribe. This one is the manage subscription. All the text over here from all the sections except the bottom is already used somewhere else. This is the text used for the clock, the big number. This is from the buttons. No, I mean from the section header. This is from the clock again. This is from the section header again, and so on. Only thing that's new is the bottom text over here with the terms and the actual links again. And we also have the t-shirt order, which is just simple fields that we have already seen before. So as you can see, we got 14 new stuff out of that we needed to add over the core features, which were actually not that many, considering that most of them were just remixed cells that have the same font, same position, same everything, just maybe a different color and maybe another type of text. So yeah, the idea is make those core features, polish them up, waste a lot of time on them, because after that, everything is just you can pretty much ignore it having to think, because it just flows. And that's it. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Please let me know.
Thank you, Ovi. That was awesome. I know we have
Thanks.
some UX UI designers here today, so if you guys have questions, this is a great time. Anyone? Okay, well, you can hear more from Ovi at the panel discussion at the end. So in the meantime, thanks again, Ovi.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Here is Mihai, our iOS developer. He's going to talk about the development phase.
Hey. 1 sec to share my screen. There we go. Yeah. So basically, I'm gonna take you through from having nothing to having something in the App Store. This will be a quick walkthrough of the app development lifecycle, mainly from rapid prototyping point of view. So first of all, as a developer, well, when I started writing this, when I started doing this presentation, first of all, I wanted to see what else is out there. And basically, when you go and search for how to develop an app or what are the steps in developing an app, there are like ideation, design, and then go and hire a developer. So yeah, basically I'm gonna take you through that go and hire a developer phase. First of all, when you start developing an app, you will go through the specs, and this well, at least this part, what I'm talking about is basically you will already have this, you will already know this, you will just need to, for example, there are 3 steps in my point of view. You need to just go through the specs again from a bird's eye view to basically see if you notice anything that it's off, or if you notice anything that might cause some issues with the review people at Apple or, well, Google Play. And yeah, basically to just make sure that you have all the details before starting to implement the app. Then you should go and detail the specs a bit. Basically, it's pencil and paper time, or if you're feeling fancy, like an iPad and an Apple Pencil, and just write and draw whatever you basically make your architecture for the app, and to emphasize the main components of the app which you are going to build. After that, you need to plan a bit how your sorry about this. Yeah, you need to plan a bit how you will start, how you will go with through the development phase. So basically, you can go agile, which everybody is doing, and it's a great way of doing stuff. But in the prototyping world, I think that waterfall might be a bit more a bit more useful, since stuff can change as you go ahead, and new features can get added all the time. Then I think these 2 steps are switchable. You should pick a language. Now I'm speaking from an iOS developer point of view. You can go Objective-C, which is oldie but goldie. It's pretty well established, and I think it's still updated. You can go to Swift, which is right now is the golden standard, or you can go Swift UI, which is basically the next generation of Swift, which also allows for faster rapid prototyping. Personally, I mostly use Swift or Objective-C, but I also started a bit of work in Swift UI widgets. For example, if you want to build widgets for the new version of iOS, you need to know Swift UI. Then we go to the fun part, coding. In coding, you have these 4 steps, which are basically, well, you read the specification of a story, for example, and then you have to think a bit on how you will implement that in the best way possible. Then you write the code, and then you dev test it. Afterwards, a bit of cycling can go through, like between writing, testing, okay, thinking about it again because something might be off, writing, then writing again, or testing, writing, and this is an ongoing flow during the entire, I think, during the entire development lifecycle. Well, what to pay attention to? First of all, reusability. Exactly like Ovi said in his presentation, it's the exact same principle in coding as well. So you will need to have components that are standalone, which you will basically be able to use inside your app afterwards. So you can just imagine that every component that you're writing, you can just take it out and like put it someplace else in the app, or even in another app if it's well, if the scope allows you. Then you need to, well, you should be following some coding standards, because it's a lot helpful even for you when you go when you open up the project like a year from now, or when somebody else needs to also write code with you, or either in the same time, like either like a team, or the project can be sent off to another team or something for bug fixing or new features. And yeah, you should follow some predefined rules and you should make sure that they stay in place. There are also a few tools that allow you to make sure that you're following those rules. One of them is ESLint, and yeah, it's I highly recommend it. And yeah, design patterns, which this is something that yeah, I shouldn't really say, but it should be the default. Basically, following design patterns will be a lot easier for you to maintain your app, to make it more flexible, to add the changes further on, and so on. After this, we have the next step is basically quality assurance, and this is not necessarily, it is coding related, since developers and the testers hold a tight connection during the development. So if anything arises, you can just go in and fix it. There we go to the bug fixing phase. At this point, we're taking into consideration that everything in your app, like from the main features, from everything else, should be completed. But if there are some bugs that needs to be fixed, you do so, and then we basically switch between this until everything is clear and is ready to be uploaded. And yeah, last but not least, it's the upload to the App Store phase, which is the this basically just begins a waiting game, which fortunately takes way less time now than it did a few years ago. It's maybe around 24 hours or so until you receive this notification, which is basically stating that your app is ready to be released, and yeah, you can just get it out there. So as the steps, these are basically the steps that a developer does while rapid prototyping an app. But I also have a few tips and tricks and what I generally use or what I generally do or follow in almost any project that I'm involved in. So first of all, dependency managers. I'm not saying that you should definitely be using this, but if you have if you need to implement something fast, then chances are that somebody already has a component ready for you through a dependency manager. One of these dependency managers is CocoaPods. There are a few others. Even Xcode has one now from Apple. And yeah. Also, what I'm a big fan of is basically to have no hard-coded text on items, which basically I just keep them in a JSON file, which can be updated from. It can even be given for translations, and also by using this, you will be able to use your app to update your text on the fly without resubmitting it to Apple. Also, dynamic text. It's also something that I'm using on my phone, but I'm also I also like implementing. It's basically whatever setting you have on your phone for the text size, the app should follow it. If not, there isn't. This isn't a must, but I think it really helps with the user experience that if the app they're using is basically continuing. Oh, sorry about that. Is basically continuing to maintain the same settings that your phone uses. Now, for as a few dependencies which I'm using, which I'm usually using, is a Realm for local database instead of core data. Firebase for basically you can have almost everything on Firebase, from machine learning to real-time databases to push notifications to Crashlytics to it's a big cluster. Alamofire for networking. And yeah, there are a few others like Kingfisher for asynchronous image loading and so on. A few tips and tricks. First of all, size matters. So when you implement an app, you will do so based on a design. That design sometimes may come in a few screen sizes, but sometimes and most of the times it comes through in like one screen size, and you should take that into account because, for example, if a screen is not scrollable on a larger screen iPhone, that will be scrollable on a smaller one. And the same goes with for example, a top bar or some buttons which should have technically a fixed size, but when you take into consideration multiple screen sizes, that size will be related to that screen instead of just having a fixed size. The second one is to just keep it native. I know that I earlier said about the dependency manager and that I'm a big fan, but I think that basically you should avoid adding stuff in your app bundle which are not necessarily that much more useful, or it will not save you that much more time instead of you just writing it. And also by keeping it native, when I say writing it, is just by using components which the system offers, since they will be the most optimized. The third one is to stay up to date. This is I think this applies also in design and like everywhere tech related, to just stay up to date with what's new in your area of software. So for example, on iOS you have yearly, you have it's basically a fixed date when Apple pushes a new version of iOS, and with that version, most of the times new stuff comes through. For example, this year it was widgets, it was I think app clips and a few other cool stuff, which I think that you should, if not necessarily you need to use it in a project at this point, you should be at least curious about it and like do a sample project or something. The fourth one is something that I've been through when I first began writing code. I was afraid to just write, not to mess something up in somebody else's code, because not every day you got to start a new project from scratch. Or this nowadays you can be sure that you are not messing anything up, because you have also most projects also use tests, unit testing, and they make sure that you are fine. And other than that, you also are not implementing stuff and testing stuff on the live environment when you're coding it. It will get tested later on the live environment, but only after it works perfectly on the staging one or the beta one. Okay, and that was it. If anyone has any questions, I'm here.
Thank you. That was awesome. I'm actually going to bring everyone on now for the panel. So save your questions. Hi, guys.
Hey.
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 Okay,
Nice
so
job, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna, if anyone wants to stick around, we're gonna do a quick panel now. So if you have questions for one person, multiple people, just throw them in the stage chat and we will get to them. But I'm gonna start off with Andrew. Give me 1 second here. So in terms of ideation, do you have an example of one of your biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you address that challenge?
Yeah. So actually one of my first, not jobs, but first time someone hired me to consult on product, it was to create a sports app. That's actually all we knew at the time, that it was something in sports, but we knew it was something in participatory sports. So basically something that's not ESPN. And so I went and started looking at the industry and trying to figure out exactly what we were going to build. Excuse me. My dog has been sleeping for the last hour until right now. Also, I wanted to prove that I'm not wearing PJ pants under here. So we wanted to do participatory sports, but we needed to figure out what to do. And so we started looking into that industry and trying to figure out where we could add value. And there's sort of two challenges there. One more on the work side, one more on the physical side. When we ended up deciding that marathon training was an area that there wasn't a lot of digital at the time. People were still like printing out 12-week plans or 16-week plans and putting them on the fridge. And so I wanted to see if that worked. So the challenge was, I, not really being a runner, decided I should train for a marathon so that I could actually see what it was like. So I remember being on a 15-mile run one day, which is like mind-blowing to me before then, and like wanting to just lay down in the road and go to sleep, and being so exhausted and thinking, this is really hard, but also thinking, hey, this is really hard and I need to be able to make adjustments to this, and there isn't a way to do that. And so even though it was physically hard, it was also a good insight for me to be able to then go and think about how we could make training plans better. And that the insight to me was that it's easy to fail at training physically, and we should try to embrace that or build around that. And so we ended up creating an idea for self-adjusting training plans that would basically always tell you your best path from here towards your marathon date, and then building algorithms that could adjust the plan for that. Now, we had the idea, we had the concept, but we still didn't know if it was worth the investment in building it. So now we turn to the lean startup, which I'm a big fan of that book. And they're also all about coming up with ways to test your concepts out without using technology, and really a technique where you use human power to replicate or to fake computing power to see if something works, and then you bring in the computing power. So we put up a website and started putting some ads up and driving people to the website, and we offered free training plans that were adjustable, and all you had to do is email us and tell us what was wrong, and we would fix the training plan for you. And at first we sold them for free, but you had to give us your email address. And then we started testing out selling them for $1, $2, $5, $10, really just to see if people would actually pull out their wallet and open it up for this concept. And I remember spending hours like adjusting people's training plans with like a book on marathon training, and just like making these tiny adjustments for $1, 7 hours of work over the course of a training plan. But we were able to validate that that was something people would pay for. And then we went to building the algorithms that could actually do all that adjustment and manual work. So it was using technology to scale a manual process, but using the manual process to validate the idea.
Awesome. We actually have a question from Daniel here, and this one is for Ovi. How do you consider the design system in this process? So in the process, I was saying.
Design system. Did I hear right?
Yeah, how do you consider the design system in the process?
I don't know. I guess I just pick something that feels right. I always go by gut mostly. I'm a big believer in that idea of making the core feature work. Sometimes I don't even mess around with making a whole wireframe if I can figure out that main feature. So yeah, that's why I said I'm gonna show you how I build an app, because by doing research on how to be a designer and how to do UI and UX, there's a whole bunch of, I don't know, flavor text or empty words, I think, and until you get down to doing it and see how annoying it could be and how I guess annoying is the right word, but just figuring out how to make everything fit, that it's better to just start doing it, I guess by feel mostly, but also keep in touch with and ask for feedback. So mostly that's how I developed my idea of working and my style of working, not necessarily by learning from, I don't know, tutorial or some course, mostly by doing myself and also asking for feedback. And it's important to get some feedback from other designers because they know what's wrong with it. But it's also really important to get feedback from non-designers. I think that's most important, because they actually use these apps, and if they can figure it out, the design could be really good, but it's not that good if they don't like it. Yeah, so I hope this answers your question. If you have a follow-up, if I didn't figure out what exactly you need, let me know.
It just reminded me, Ovi, of the user test we did last week where we were testing out some homepage ideas, and like he came up with a really creative like navigation system that was beautiful and that I had never seen before, and like we all loved it. And we put it in the user test, and everyone was like, why isn't navigation at the top? And it wasn't that there wasn't a great designer or creative design, it was that we have a way of like, we're used to how things work, and it's like change is hard, and particularly with like software. Change means reduction in users going through your system, and you have to think about it all at scale. So it's like that balance between being creative and coming up with new stuff, being innovative versus like making sure people can actually use the thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. So for Mihai, if someone is looking to hire a developer, what are some things they can look for or maybe pay attention to in initial conversations to know that they're going with the right person?
Well, this is a bit, it's a bit tricky, I think. The thing is that you won't, well, sometimes I think that you will just figure that out by just going with your gut. But the thing is that I would ask for like some challenges that occurred in some of the past projects. I would also like to see some apps that that developer worked on, and not necessarily in the store, even on his phone or something, because not everyone has an app in the store, like just being there. Also, I think I would go. I would want to see him as interested in the entire system as I am, for example. So to see that the developer is, that it's curious, that wants to learn more, that if I ask a question and he has the wrong answer or like a slightly different answer than what I was expecting, I would like to see curiosity there, that he wants to learn more and wants to improve. And yeah, I think that's the main thing, to just see that spark when to see that he really loves what he's doing. And other than that, of course, you can check for a portion of a piece of code, or you can check for yeah, I don't know, apps in the store or so, but that won't necessarily tell you that it's a good developer. I think. Yeah, I think.
We actually have another question coming for you, Mihai. Could a fake app be released on the App Store? And would the App Store approve it for release?
That depends. Something like this happened recently, like yesterday or 2 days ago, where somebody uploaded an app to the App Store with a description being like a companion app for your crypto wallet, which wasn't really well. Yeah, it went through Apple. It got live, and it caused around $600,000 in losses from the people that used it, because you were basically entering your I think your actual login of a crypto wallet, and yeah, they can just take that away with no trace. However, I've had, so I think it really depends on who's reviewing your app, and maybe a bit of luck would be included there. I've had apps that were not necessarily flawless, but they were in the store. They had like a history in the store. They had at least 20 or 30 updates before, and with a small change that we did, well, at one update, it didn't even matter that we didn't change what they found that would be a problem. It was flagged, and yeah, we had to make bigger changes in our features because of that. However, 30 updates before, it went just fine. It went through just fine.
So we have one for Andrew here from Nicholas. Thank you. Before the testing of an idea manually, did Andrew have any sense of the chances that it would work, or how much people would be willing to pay, and how might those beliefs turn out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest fallacy in app development or web development is this idea that if you build something, people will just come. It's actually the hardest part, and so you either have to charge for your app, or you've heard the saying, if you're not paying for it, you are the product. So from our perspective, we're looking at utility apps that we can charge for, and so we're trying to figure out whether someone would actually pay for it. And actually, the thing we want to know is whether they'll pay the first dollar. That's the hardest one to get, and then you can monetize around that. Now, how you figure that out before you actually run a test, there are indicators. So in the case of marathon runners, we were looking at how much people were spending on sports and activities, and marathon running is not something that people do if they're poor or hungry or struggling. Like, it's a pretty privileged sport. And we knew that from the data. We knew that when people start running for a race, the first thing they do is they go buy a new pair of $100 shoes, and they go buy their new fancy wallet, and they invest in this because they think that it's going to make the training part easier. And so we had looked at various surveys and reports to understand that demographic was one of a higher income class that was willing to spend a few $100s on it. So we knew there was money being spent there. And then we just tried to see if, the hypothesis was, well, why wouldn't they spend a little bit of money to get support from a trainer so they don't get injured or don't hurt themselves, or someone to encourage them. And then, on the flip side, the earlier you test, the sooner you can see what people are willing to pay. We didn't really know if people would take out their wallet until we actually put up the website and asked people to open their wallets up. So a combination of that pre-research and thinking about where they do already spend money and whether they can divert some of that money towards it, and then the testing. Taco agrees.
All right, does anyone have any other questions?
I had a question for Ovi, actually. I'm a non-designer. So if you're a non-designer and you want to try to design something, what's like a tool you can use that kind of gets you the most bang for your effort or lack of effort? Like, what is something that's kind of somewhat powerful but also easy to use that you could recommend for someone that just wants to like dive in and start working?
Figma. It's completely free for personal use, and it's also completely in your browser, so you don't have to worry about anything. And for vector art, even though it's not quite design, there's Vectornator, which is also free on an iPad, iPhone, and on Mac. What happened?
He's like a superhero. He just gets called straight into action. All right.
Sorry. I got a delivery.
So I think that wraps up everything for today. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let's see. Oh, is there another question for Ovi here, maybe? Give it 1 second. Okay, so from between, do you got it?
Yeah. How do I judge between the fun or so how do you judge? Well, it has to be practical first. Like Andrew said, I made something that I was really proud of and it was really cool, but practically was not useful. So think of it this way. How many websites have you seen that are really flashy and have really cool animations and slow scrolling and all that? And you look at them, you open them up, and as a designer, you're thinking, I could never build that. But yeah, maybe someday. But in reality, you wouldn't want to use that, right? That's more to show off. It's not for actual use. So I think, like you saw, that the whole building of the clock and selecting those sets by hours, that's a nice middle ground where it's actually functional, but it's cool to build. It's been used before because iOS has it, the radial idea. So it's not something so foreign for the user. I guess you have to pick and choose depending on what you're building, but just like in logo design, don't do more than one artsy thing, you know? Yeah, I think that's it.
Have you done any sites for artists, Ovi?
Me personally, no.
Lies.
I have yet to build my own website.
He's lying.
Have I?
You did my band's website, man.
Oh, yeah. Forgot
Remember?
When he said artist, I was thinking some painter or something.
An artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're ever in San Francisco and bars are reopening, check out the Bodega Band. That's my plug.
Shameless plug.
Shameless, indeed.
Okay, well, I think that wraps everything up. Again, thanks everyone for coming. This was a lot of fun. And if you have any questions,
I had one more question. Are we going to post this recording anywhere?
There's actually another question in the questions tab.
Oh, the Q&A.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
This one's for Mihai. You got it, Mihai.
Yeah. In my experience, have I considered any process to improve communication between design and programming? I think that the lack of communication between design and programming is mainly occurs when not everything is built in-house. So I almost always had the chance to working directly with either Ovi or some other designer in our exact in-house, and that's because of that, and like a closer relationship or so. I think that I didn't really have any communication problems, so I'm not sure how to help there.
Yeah, and basically whenever a new, I don't know, weird design idea comes up, first I think about it, then I ask Mihai if it's doable, then I spend time drawing it. So there's no wasted time there.
Yeah.
We've definitely also had sessions where we go through wireframes together, and there's like, for example, a really cool, with Push App like that, we had some really cool design elements that would have to be custom. And I remember discussions where you said, well, if you do it a different way, you're going to save a bunch of development time. And certainly if you're just trying to test concepts out, that's great. I think one of the things we actually wanted to do is a little bit of a show off, was like implement some custom cool stuff. And so we decided to do that anyway, because half the time we build these small apps, it's so that we can like show off our skills. But from a testing point of view, you can definitely cut down on complexity if you know what's a custom animation versus what's something that's already in the toolkit or you're going to be really quick to implement.
Yeah.
And also for designers, it's useful to just Google how to do stuff, even if the dev says it can be done. Just bug him with a link where it says it can, and he'll consider it.
Yep, start the conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we don't know if we're posting this yet, but if we do, it'll be on our channel on SF AppWorks on YouTube, or to our Instagram account at SF AppWorks. So follow us there. We're trying to post a lot of content around the process of ideation, design, and creation.
Yeah, if you have any other questions, I'm going to provide my email here, so feel free to reach out. And yeah, look for these video snippets probably in the next week or so. Yeah, don't be a stranger.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. This was fun.
You all.
Thanks.
Until next
Bye.
time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.